Andrew owns a Tesla, and that night he wasn't driving. The car was 110 k's an hour down the freeway, and when the window exploded, the car drove on, nice and steady. Tesla, the world's safest car in a meteor shower. And Andrew, you think that because the car was in this self-driving mode that it saved your life?
It certainly did, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because there was a period there where we were incapacitated with all this flying glass and smoke and just in total shock. And it was a really, really violent explosion. But while we were incapacitated, the car was quite happy to keep going on. It was amazing. So, yeah. Thank you, Tesla.
There you have it. Not even a meteor shower in Australia can stop FSD. Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. I wanted to clarify one thing from earlier this week on Tesla's generative Gaussian splatting. I got some questions about how Tesla is actually implementing this technology. Are they using it for driving or training or both? The easiest way to think about it, the GGS I'll call it, is like having a co-pilot. Those 3D maps can be generated nearly instantaneously to help with things like safety checks in real time. So for driving, the GGS is basically used to double check what the car is perceiving. And it does indeed run on the car's hardware, which helps people like engineers or regulators to verify everything is safe and working as expected. So think about all of the times you've sent a clip to Tesla for the team to look at. A lot of that debugging and review is likely incorporating the GGS. But of course, I would say primarily it is used for training, where it creates a ton of these 3D worlds and then Tesla can customize them and create whatever type of edge case they want. So while it's primarily used for training, there are applications for real-time use while driving to verify what the car is seeing, since these 3D scenes are created faster than we can blink, which is exactly why the speed with which Tesla can create these is so important. NVIDIA announced it's partnering with Uber to scale the world's largest Level 4 ready mobility network. They plan to do this using NVIDIA's Drive platform, and we've talked about this before. Remember, this is basically a toolkit for other automakers to use. It is by no means a plug-and-play solution. They said NVIDIA can support Uber in scaling its global autonomous fleet to 100,000 vehicles over time, starting in 2027. Not that the fleet will be scaled by 2027, it's going to start scaling in 2027. So they say. Further, NVIDIA and Uber are also working together to develop a data factory accelerated by the NVIDIA Cosmos World Foundation model. This to curate and process data needed for autonomous vehicles. At this point, Uber knows that it desperately needs to find an autonomous solution. Tesla is not playing ball, and so Uber is taking a page out of GM's playbook, where it throws a bunch of things at the wall to see what sticks. This data factory with NVIDIA will of course take time to be created, and then to scale, and then to be refined, which is going to take years. Anytime I mention Hyperion 10, just think semiconductor chip and the multimodal sensor suite. NVIDIA says it will work with cars, trucks, or vans. Companies that have said they're planning to go this route with NVIDIA: Stellantis, Lucid, Mercedes, AV Ride, May Mobility, Momenta, Neuro, Pony AI, Wave, WeRide. On the trucking side, Aurora, Volvo, Waabi. And this is what I mean when I say it really is now Tesla versus everyone else for the autonomous race. Most of the competition is now officially going this pick and shovel route with NVIDIA, rather than either A, developing its own strategy, or B, working with Tesla. However, I have a prediction on this I will share shortly. Because remember, while Waymo does create sensors in-house, they are still using NVIDIA hardware on the cars for onboard compute. The Hyperion 10 sensor suite includes 14 HD cameras, 9 radars, 1 LiDAR, and 12 ultrasonics, and a qualified board design. It's modular and customizable, allowing manufacturers and AV developers to tailor it to their unique requirements. To enable the industry to develop and evaluate these large models for autonomous driving, NVIDIA is also releasing the world's largest multimodal AV dataset, comprising 1,700 hours of real-world camera, radar, and LiDAR data across 25 countries. And guys, listen, a fun fact about Tesla, they're collecting 1,700 hours of real-world data fresh roughly every 60 seconds. So sure, NVIDIA can slap on multimodal and then play the semantics game here with the world's largest, but in reality, this is like microscopic to what Tesla is doing. So in short, this is NVIDIA saying, here you go guys, here's a computer, here's a sensor suite that we can help you fuse together, here's a basic operating software that will act as plumbing, but you still have to build the actual house. So Stellantis, Mercedes, and all of these other companies still have to build AI teams to create the neural networks and the algorithms and the code, if they go that route, that actually tells the cars how to drive, how to perceive, how to plan, and how to output controls. So the hard, laborious, and tedious work of building an autonomous model is not included in this package from NVIDIA. Now, yes, NVIDIA will offer some other tools that will help these companies train their models once they have them developed. They will help these companies create simulated environments to learn how to train in synthetic worlds. But at the end of the day, it's just a kit, and these companies will still have to build their own custom software stacks using it. And a quick refresher, what is SAE Level 4? As we know, with 3 through 5, you're not driving when the automated systems are engaged, even if you're in the driver's seat. With Level 3, you have to be ready to take over at any time, but with Levels 4 and 5, the automated driving will not require you to take over. However, these features can drive the vehicle only under limited conditions and will not operate at all unless the conditions are met. That for Level 3 and 4. And of course, the distinction for Level 5 is these features working under any and all conditions everywhere. So just like we saw with Mercedes and its implementation of Level 3 software, where it was highways only, had to be sunny, 40 miles an hour, and all of these other limitations, we will very likely see similar limitations with Level 4. So what I'm getting at is, even if some of these companies can figure out how to implement Level 4 with these tools, that does not mean it's going to be ubiquitous and working in snow and heavy rain and in all cities. Responding to this news, Elon said it's easy to get to pretty good self-driving, but insanely hard to get to great. So here's my prediction. These companies are going to start down this path of working with NVIDIA. And late 2027, when a handful of cars roll out with this suite, the automakers will be promoting that these cars are Level 4 capable with a future software update. Then 2028, and a few maybe do implement Level 4 tech on certain highways or under certain speeds, and it's a useful tool. It's reliable and allows you to read or text or whatever. But the way I see it, these companies still have no real path to true generalized autonomy. And by the end of the 2020s, when these companies are rolling out limited Level 4, Tesla will be scaling across large swaths of America with unsupervised for its own fleet and some customer cars. And then these companies working with NVIDIA will have a decision to make. Scrap everything they did and license FSD from Tesla because it's clearly working at scale, or stick with their limited Level 4 and watch their sales crater because the world now realizes that unsupervised is here anywhere, but it's only when you're in a Tesla. So this is why I think the auto industry is signing its death certificate with this one. Had these companies dropped their pride and talked to Tesla, they could likely offer unsupervised on their entire fleets in a few years. But instead, they're likely going to get stuck in a local maximum of pretty good self-driving when the right conditions are met, with no viable path to true generalized autonomy. And I really hope you all know I want all companies to offer autonomy so lives are saved and the streets are safer and people get more free time back. I'm just coming at this from a realist perspective, having watched Legacy Auto make promises for years and years and fall short. And we've all seen their weakness is what? Software and AI. They do not have the talent, they do not have the expertise, they can't even develop their own car software or user interfaces. So now we're expecting them to magically develop self-driving algorithms just because NVIDIA gives them a platform to build them on? I think think that's a bit ridiculous. So for me, the best case is these companies offer limited level 4 by late 2027, so a decent perk, I suppose. But again, if you can go buy a Tesla for $30,000 that drives itself anywhere, anytime, is it really going to be that nice of a perk? And of course, when it comes to companies licensing FSD, Yoon Tasai was asked about this, and remember, he used to work at Nvidia on what is now today the Drive AGX platform. Yoon said, "I implemented both platforms. Tesla's insanely efficient and robust and has gone through a lot more real-world tests. It's more than just a chip. Otherwise, there are plenty of ADAS providers." So he didn't really answer the question, but even Ford lately came out with Farley saying they prefer the LiDAR approach of Waymo. So if and when they license something that will go beyond their Blue Cruise, they might lean away from Tesla. Then GM has Super Cruise, but they've said they're working with Nvidia for more advanced self-driving, and I would be quite surprised if Mary Barra decided to drop her pride and work with Elon. So there just aren't that many companies left to license FSD as it stands right now. Some smaller players, sure, but Tesla has said they're only going to go through that process if the scale is there. So on Tesla licensing FSD, for any major deals, we might be waiting another few years until closer to 2030, when these companies realize this off-the-shelf toolkit is not going to be a panacea to get to generalized autonomy. And at that point, once they're faced with reality, they'll have to crawl to Tesla, because at that time, Tesla's path is finally validated and no one can argue it. I have a confession to make. I have changed my nighttime routine this week. I've been quietly testing the new FSD 14 after work, and that's usually still later in the evening, so I've been enjoying my AGZ in the car while supervising. And yes, I am listening to Christmas music in October. I regret nothing. And I do plan to share my testing results of FSD 14 from this week in tomorrow's episode. But at the age of 36, I have realized if I don't sleep well, I operate well under my capacity. And I do enjoy creating morning and nighttime routines that I look forward to for bookending my days. As always, guys, I would say try it for yourselves if you'd like to support Electrified and hopefully improve the quality of your life. Since there's no melatonin in AGZ, you might wake up a lot more refreshed if you're usually groggy in the mornings, like I was in the past, really no matter how many hours of sleep I got. For me, the taste is herbal. I have a pretty basic palate though, my wife will tell you, so I can't give you much more than that, but I do find it calming, and there are no artificial flavors, sweeteners, or added sugar. I usually have mine with cold water, but Ashley likes it warm and with milk. So if you want to turn down the stress and focus on the rest, head to drinkag1.com/electrified linked below, or scan the QR code to get a free frother with your first purchase of AGZ. And thank you for supporting Electrified. Moving on, we got some interesting commentary on the Cybercab from Robin Denholm. She said, if we have to have a steering wheel, it can have a steering wheel and pedals. That, of course, talking about the Cybercab. Denholm clarified that the Cybercab is indeed the Model 2. And they said this could be in part because regulators so far have been reluctant to budge on certain long-standing safety standards, despite Elon lobbying Washington to do so. If you have not been following the political arena closely, just know Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and Elon have been butting heads on X. As we know right now, NHTSA only allows manufacturers to deploy as many as 2,500 AVs per year that do not have traditional controls, and getting exemptions from those rules can be a long and arduous process. NHTSA didn't act for more than 2 years on GM's attempt with Cruise and the Origin, but to me, comparing Cruise to what Tesla did is absolutely ridiculous. Tesla's data and safety profile would dwarf anything that Cruise had at its best. But Robin also said the original Model Y was not going to have a steering wheel or pedals. If we cannot sell something because it needs something, then we'll work with regulators to work out what we need to do. And yes, it's true that right now it would be easier for Tesla to get autonomous approval with a vehicle with a wheel and pedals than one without. Some people out there try to make the argument that Tesla using LiDAR would make their regulatory approval easier, but as far as I can tell, that's not the case because NHTSA has said they evaluate overall safety performance, things like miles per intervention and crash rates, rather than actually looking at what the sensor's being used are. So there would be no teacher's pet treatment for Tesla even if they had LiDAR. Listen, for me it's pretty simple. All along I've been saying the Cybercab will not have a wheel and pedals simply because all of the Tesla executives time and time again said that it wouldn't. But at least for now that is no longer the case. We need to consider these comments from Robin. This is legitimate, so there's a decent chance that the Cybercab will come with a wheel and pedals, at least to start, to bridge to future production when it can finally remove it. And it should be obvious, but as I said on X, Robin saying the Cybercab can come with a wheel and pedals does not mean that it's actually going to happen. And I am still confident that the goal is to get to production without a wheel and pedals and to make sure the regulations change quickly. But listen, Farzad's right. If we get to the end of 2026 and the regulations have not changed and the Cybercab production line is ready to ramp up, then Tesla will have its hands tied if it doesn't have a solution with a wheel and pedals. And I would add there's a chance there is some in-between solution where Tesla adds some type of emergency override to satisfy whatever the regulatory requirements are at the time. But for me, I'm expecting Cybercab production to be slow when it starts in Q2 next year, as they test out everything new with the unboxed method, and as they test out the Cybercabs out in the wild. I mean, other two-door, two-seat cars like the Corvette sold about 33,000 units in 2024, but that's a very different beast. Mazda's Miata did 8,100 units last year. There's the Porsche 718 that did just under 6,000 units. And listen, I understand it's capable of autonomy. I'm just saying this form factor in and of itself does not scream mass appeal in the United States. And sure, maybe Tesla can buck that trend. I'm just saying I'm very confident Elon and Tesla's goal is still to enter production without a wheel and pedals to make this primarily an autonomy-only vehicle. But as I said, Farzad deserves his flowers for now. Finally, after about 2 months, the geofence for Robotaxi in Austin has expanded. This is a map from RoboTracker, and you can see Tesla's new geofence in red compared to Waymo's in blue. Tesla's geofence is now 243 square miles compared to Waymo's at 89. Since Tesla launched the Robotaxi service in Austin, this is now expansion number 4. The first 3 came at intervals of roughly 3 weeks each, but for expansion number 4, it took 2 months and 2 days. The problem right now, though, is Tesla is not also increasing the fleet size in Austin, so people are complaining about the ability to hail a ride. Farzad and some others like Ethan McKenna have said they've been trying to book Robotaxi in the new geofence and cannot get paired with a car. So maybe Tesla doesn't want to hire extra safety monitors, maybe they don't want to train them, perhaps remote operations aren't ready to scale, but for whatever reason, Tesla is staying steady with somewhere likely in the mid-20s in terms of vehicles active in Austin. And as a reminder, the service is still not open to the public, even though Elon said they were aiming to do that by the end of September. Well, we're now near the end of October, and just because you can download the app if you have an iPhone does not mean you can use the service. You still have to be invited. On the supervised FSD front, the Minister of Transport, Miri Regev, has said on X she received many referrals from Tesla drivers in Israel. Soon, you will not need to hold the steering wheel. An article she shared said Tesla enthusiasts in Israel were promoting a petition calling on her to approve the activation of the tech in Israel. It's been signed by 1,000 people, and it says the technology has already been successfully activated for many months in advanced countries like the USA, Canada, Australia, and even those like China and Mexico. Although we know in China it's very, very limited, mostly for testing. And she said that she sees great importance in promoting innovative tech, in particular the advanced driving systems like FSD into the Israeli market to improve safety, and she has instructed the Director General of the ministry to act as soon as possible to approve the technology subject to the necessary tests. The only other update we got was that the hope is they obtain approval in Israel in the near future. For me, I would expect a few months of testing before this can go live, but I think it's realistic that supervised FSD could go wide in Israel sometime in the first half of 2026. Replying to Everyday Astronaut, Elon said, "Robotaxi is the same Model Y that everyone who buys the car receives. It just has a slightly different software build." Then Elon said, "Tesla autonomous driving might spread faster than any technology ever. The hardware foundations have been laid for such a long time that a software update enables self-driving for millions of pre-existing cars in a short period of time." Yes, we've heard it dozens of times before, but it's more true now than ever. Tesla has a new job posting in Fremont for manufacturing engineer for the Roadster. This for development and launch of battery manufacturing equipment for our cutting-edge Roadster vehicle. But disappointingly, they snuck in here at the end while this is still in its early development stages. So look, we might get a demo here in the next few months, which will be super exciting, but this is likely not going to enter production until sometime in 2027 based on how things are shaping up right now. Elon said he just had a great Tesla Optimus engineering and manufacturing review. Imagine having your personal C3PO or R2D2. Optimus will be even better. To that I said, I think Tesla should record one of these meetings and then share it sometime next year, or really whenever it doesn't give up Tesla's secret sauce. I think it would be awesome to see the behind the scenes of these meetings, and I think so many people would learn a lot. Not even just about the technology, but about how Elon conducts these meetings. Now, Jan LeCun was out there saying some things who has historically butted heads with Elon multiple times. He was basically saying many of these current companies working on humanoid robots have no idea how to actually make them. But Julian Ibars, the Optimus lead, said, "I disagree with Jan LeCun on this. We have a pretty good idea at Tesla on how we can make general humanoids a reality very quickly." Adam Jonas, in his new embodied AI role, shared another note saying, "We think the proposal for Tesla's investment in xAI deserves more attention. We believe it's a testing of the waters for further investment and cooperation between Tesla and xAI down the road. Tesla's progress in robotics would benefit from xAI's progress in AGI," which, if you ask me, is one of the most obvious statements ever. Which leads us perfectly into what's going on with 1X and Neo, their robot for your home, which yes, you can now order online. Here it is, the Neo Home Robot website, 3 different colors available, and the pricing, $500 per month as a subscription or $20,000 to own it outright. $200 deposit due today, fully refundable. Deliveries start 2026. If you buy Neo outright, you do not need an additional subscription. Neo comes standard with a charger that functions using your standard home outlet. Neo can connect itself to charge when needed. Neo works autonomously by default. For any chore request it does not know, you can schedule a 1X expert to guide it, helping Neo learn while getting the job done. AKA, for certain tasks, it will be teleoperated if you decide to schedule it. Neo's emotive earrings will change color when a 1X expert operator is active. Owners have full control over each session. And they're saying even when it's teleoperated, Neo can blur any people in the scene. You can also set certain zones in your house that Neo is not allowed to go into, maybe like a bedroom. And a teleoperator cannot connect to Neo unless you approve it. I'm going over this not because I'm hyper confident Neo is going to ship successfully next year, but because when Optimus rolls around, these will all be things we have to think about. The 1X employees that will teleoperate Neo are in the United States. Neo understands natural language, allowing users to guide Neo through simple conversation. Neo has a 0.75 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Neo will not be able to cook out of the gate. Neo's hands are waterproof, but the overall product is not. Neo is designed to be operated in and around your own home and on firm ground. Maintenance by the 1X team is recommended for optimal performance. 1X service can provide a mobile support for every Neo. They'll be manufactured in California, and if you go the subscription route, it's like a rental, you can return it at any time. Neo's 5 feet 6 inches tall and it weighs 66 pounds. They're touting 22 degrees of freedom in the hands and operation at around 22 decibels, which they're saying is quieter than a refrigerator. Initial deliveries are set for the US in 2026 and they're supposed to expand to other markets in 2027. They say it can lift up to 154 pounds, but it can only carry up to 55 pounds. A 4-hour battery life per charge. And they're saying it can indeed climb stairs. The clothing that it wears is removable and machine washable, and some of the chores it's expected to do: folding laundry, emptying the dishwasher, vacuuming floors, taking out the garbage, watering plants, organizing shelves and entryways, opening doors, and carrying groceries. You can assign it lists, you can schedule certain routines at certain times. It's also a mobile entertainment system, so it can play music and podcasts while it works. They're saying it can remember past conversations and it can learn from your preferences and set reminders. It can help you to find lost items or teach new languages. Sure, at first glance, this sounds awesome. Some people out there are saying everything's going to be teleoperated, which is just not accurate. Neo is saying most of these basic chores will be done autonomously out of the box. But it's the unfamiliar tasks where you might have to call in one of these teleoperators. I think it's going to be quite exciting watching this all unfold. There are so many different storylines here, but I think the biggest one is Neo is trying to take the Tesla approach, where they have the customers gather and generate all this data for them with the product in hand after paying for it. So just like Tesla vehicles gather all this data for Tesla, Neo is trying to have all of these bots in people's homes learn and gather data for the company. And they're already saying it'll do most things autonomously, but the quality of it is going to vary. So for me, whenever these do start shipping, if it's 2026 or sometime later, at first it'll be just as much you raising a robot as it is you owning a robot. So as a customer, you'll be responsible for teaching it and helping it to gather data and to learn as you go. And of course, we are going to have plenty of people making fun of this and saying, just hire someone to come to your house for an hour a week to clean and so on and so forth. But look, all revolutionary technology has to start somewhere. I understand exactly what Neo is trying to do here, outsourcing real world data gathering, and they're being transparent about it, so I don't see any problem with it. For the average person, this pricing is still way too prohibitive, but again, this is going to be for the early adopter for the first few years as the kinks are ironed out. But I do think all of this is going to help normalize this conversation for whenever Optimus is ready to make an in-home appearance. And I'm no longer the biggest fan of MKBHD, but he said, I see this as more of a hype reel for a thing they're hoping to be able to make someday, which I think is partially true. Based on the testing and videos I've watched so far, it seems like Neo has a lot of progress they still need to make over the next year to achieve certain things and promises, like most of the tasks being done autonomously. All this to say, if you decide to pre-order, I would just be expecting delays, and I'm confident patience will be required. The communications manager at Waymo posted this yesterday, saying at 2 p.m. Boston will consider becoming the first major city in the world to ban fully autonomous vehicles based entirely on vibes. He was talking about a Boston City Council hearing where they were discussing a new ordinance that would effectively ban fully driverless vehicles in the city. So if this ordinance were to pass, it would require a human safety operator in the vehicle. And of course, the people arguing this are saying it's about safety when in reality they're just trying to support union jobs in the taxi and rideshare sectors. And of course, there was a bunch of labor union representatives outside of the meeting. And just to show how backwards I think this is, they were arguing that the autonomous vehicles might not be safe for vulnerable pedestrians like people that are blind. But ironically, there were actually people at the hearing that were blind that were arguing for autonomous vehicles, saying it would help them to get their mobility back. So the hearing was only informational, they were not voting. And at this point, I would say it's pretty tough to tell which way this one's going to go, but it's absolutely something to watch because yes, if this ordinance passes, then Waymo would not be able to operate in Boston as is, and Tesla's Robotaxi would not be able to operate in Boston if and when they decide to remove the safety monitors. So it's very frustrating. If Boston had some clear data showing autonomous vehicles were not safe, then so be it. But that's not the case. It's about union jobs and people complaining, people that don't understand the technology at all and that don't like change. So we'll see what happens. And as Sawyer pointed out, the Cybercab Cybercab was spotted testing on a public road for the first time. This was in Los Altos, California, about 10 minutes from Tesla's engineering HQ. And he did say that someone was indeed in the driver's seat. The vehicle does have side mirrors and I would imagine has a wheel and pedals just in case. Can't say for sure, but either way, you love to see it. One step closer to making this product a reality. Today, Powell said that the central bank is watching layoffs very, very carefully. He also said there's a growing chorus now of feeling like maybe this is where we should at least wait a cycle, something like that, when it comes to future rate cuts, hinting that the Fed might want to assess the impact of their 2 rate cuts this year already before moving again. And the analysts are saying although we think the Fed will ultimately cut to below 3% as the economy falters, the path of such a move is much less clear given Powell's comments regarding the possibility of a December pause. But the Fed did indeed cut rates by 25 bips today. So with a bit more uncertainty about the next rate cut, we have Tesla closing the day at $461.51, up 0.21%, while the NDX was up 0.41%, but Tesla down about 2.5% in after-hours trading. The volume was 25% below the average. Don't forget, check out AGZ linked below if you'd like to support the channel, and as always, thank you guys for considering it. Hope you have a wonderful day. Please like the video. If you did, you can find me on X linked below, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.